welcome to yet another exciting episode of You.Gov. It's about you and the government. We'll tell you about government functions and responsibilities as well as citizens' obligations. This week on the show, we'll be looking at a very interesting concept, and it is the rule of law. We are right here in front of the Lagos State High Court at Ikeja, and we'll be interacting with a lot of lawyers. But stay tuned, we'll let you know more after this time out.
Lovewell Plus app is bigger and better. Watch all our shows with just a click.
Let him have the right to decide what happens with your body.
Watch inspiring, informative, and entertaining programs. You can comment, like, and share. Watch our live TV and web TV on your mobile devices. Watch the big stories in real time or when you have the time. Experience Lovewell Plus app right now. Download Lovewell Plus app on Android, iOS, and BlackBerry. Go to Google Play Store, Apple App Store, or Windows Phone Store. Welcome to the bigger picture. Lovewell Plus, beyond television. With every story comes an inside story, shaping thoughts, opinions, and driving the conversation. Nations, governments, economies, and even the environment. The causes, consequences, or benefits. The analysis makes it clear. We take a close look at every possible angle. No matter the story, we take you inside the news.
Inside the News, showing on the station.
The talk never stops, whether politics, leadership, or economies in Africa. The issues, the facts, and all the sides. Your views matter. Let's discuss.
Join us on the agenda, showing only on Lovewell Plus.
Well, if you're just joining us, this is You.Gov, and this week we said we'll be interacting with some lawyers. So we are here at the Ikeja High Court in Lagos State, and we'll let you know what their reactions are on the concept, the rule of law.
The concept of the rule of law basically is supposed that the law is supreme, as propounded by its proponent A.V. Dicey in his treatise on the law. He said that when it comes to the concept of rule of law, it means that one, the law is supreme is supreme to every other law in the land. And in the case of Nigeria, as an example, we have the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, which says that the Constitution is the ground norm. That is the basic law from which other laws derive its source from. Yes, particularly Section 1 of the Constitution. Secondly, when it comes to the concept of the rule of law, it means that the law is based on the rights of the people. If you have a particular law that does not define the rights of people, or which does not give rights and liberties of the people, then you cannot say you have the rule of law. Lastly, we want to talk about the concept of the rule of law. that is, there must be machinery in place, that is, state machineries, state functions, or state institutions in place that must guarantee the process of the rule of law. Number 2, the law must be based on the rights of the people. Number 3, that there must be institutions in place to guarantee the promotion of those laws. That is just the concept of the rule of law.
The concept of rule of law is propounded by a man called Olomu-Agbodo, popularly known as Evidaisi. And the concept is under 3 proponents, that is, supremacy of the law, equality before the law, and fundamental human rights. Number 1, supremacy of the law, that is, the law is supreme. And to further buttress this, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended, says that the Constitution is supreme, that is, the law or the laws are supreme. Then equality before the law, which means that everyone is equal before the law. That is, the law is no respecter of anyone. We are all equal before the law. And the third one is fundamental human rights. That is, under the Constitution, sections 33 to 45 or thereabout, spells out fundamental human rights of citizens in Nigeria. So, to domesticate everything propounded, or the proponents of the principle of law or doctrine of rule of law by Olomu-Agbodo, the Constitution of Nigeria has domesticated all this in the 1999 Constitution as amended. Thank you.
Rule of law itself is a body of laws by which a people have decided to live, or to have decided that to govern themselves by, or to comply to. Well, rule of law, like one of my lecturers will say, that all animals are equal, but the truth is that some animals are more equal than others. So there's always a law for the rich, there's a law for the poor, and that's the truth of the matter. Laws are meant to guide people. Laws are meant to put people where they should be. But you will definitely find out that those laws, every law itself, whether in Nigeria or elsewhere, definitely have some loopholes where people can pick when they actually want to go contrary to the provisions or the letters or the bodies of the law. So, like I said, anybody who probably has run foul of the law, who can hire a very good lawyer, so to speak, will probably, even if the person would at the end of the day, get judgment, or probably the person will probably be prosecuted or sentenced. Let me use the word, be sentenced. You find that the sentence will probably be lighter than somebody who was not able to hire a lawyer, or somebody who was not able to hire a good lawyer. Well, the rule of law shouldn't be that, but you have to understand that man by nature itself, this rule of law itself supposed to be implemented by men. So if anything that man, so to speak, is in charge of, you definitely have one or two shortcomings.
Well, according to the one subsection of 1999 Constitution of Nigeria, it says that this Constitution is supreme, and it's binding force on all persons and forces in Federal Republic of Nigeria. That means nobody is above the law.
Rule of law basically entails the fact that in every society that the law prevails. It presupposes the fact that no individual, no matter how highly placed in society, should be above the law. Every person, every subject in a geographical entity that is called the country should be under the law, no matter the circumstances, no matter the wealth, no matter, like I said earlier, no matter how highly placed an individual is in the society. Everybody ought and meant to be above the law, so that the society can move forward and a sane nation can be built. Because no sane nation can be built where some people are termed or seen as being above the law.
Wow, brilliant lawyers. The rule of law indeed was propounded by A.V. Dicey, a renowned philosopher who actually lived a long time ago and has passed. Rule of law essentially entails the fact that everyone is subject to the law, even the legislature, the judiciary, the executive. No one is above the law. Let's hear Barrister Prince Uzeme as he rounds off on this concept.
The rule of law simply refers to a government that is based on laws. What we mean is the government should not be based on the whims or the caprices of men or what men think. It should be based on what does the law say. That's the summary of the rule of law. It simply says that every person is equal before the law. What I mean is that both the people on the streets, the lawmakers, the executive, the legislature, the creators of the law, they are all equal before the law, and the law applies equally to each and every single one of them. And the principle of the rule of law is actually very old. Even the great philosopher Plato spoke about it when he said, let the law rule. Let the law rule simply means that let the people be guided solely by the law and nothing else. That is the rule of law. Then in England back then, there was a resurgence of the principle of the rule of law. When people started asking questions, making inquiries about what in England then was referred to as the divine rights of the king. It was believed that the king could never go wrong, like a concept of Napoleon is always right. And it meant that in everything, whatever the king does, good or bad, the king was always right. It got to a point people questioned, why is the king always right? And I told them the king is divinely ordained by God to rule, and therefore whatever he says is the act of the king and nothing goes wrong. Then a British jurist called A.V. Dicey came up with this principle called the rule of law to question the divine rights of kings to rule and to propose that every person should be equal before the law. The law should apply equally to every person. So that's simply the principle of the rule of law. A government that is based on laws rather than based on men. And I also want to add that a government that is based solely on laws is actually called a nonocracy. That is a government that is not based on discretion, a government that is not based on arbitrary practices of any leader, but a government that every action and inaction of the government is determined by what the law says. Equality before the law is the principle of the rule of law. The rule of law is found generally in democracies, but that is not to say it is only democracies that practice the rule of law. Where the rule of law is absent in a democracy, it is probably because of neglect for the facilities of enforcement or the ignorance of the people. For the rule of law to reign supreme, a government should have sufficient enforcement mechanisms that would chastise or punish those who go contrary to the law. So in a democracy, you have the rule of law practiced greatly. But also in other forms of government, I wouldn't say dictatorship, because a dictatorship is a government that is based on the law of one man. There is no rule of law in a dictatorship. In socialism is a government that is where the government itself is supreme to the people, and whatever the government says is right. That I wouldn't find too much of rule of law there. Even in an oligarchy, which is a government of a few persons, there wouldn't be much rule of law there. But generally, in a democracy, which is a government that Nigeria is currently practicing, the government that is practicing by over 70% of the world today, you find the rule of law. But in practice, the rule of law, like I stated, cannot have effect except the government has sufficient and adequate enforcement mechanisms to enforce the practice and the principles of the rule of law. And the people too should not be ignorant of the law, because ignorance of the law also breaks the principle of the rule of law, because the people would then have to act according to their own discretion, what their mind tells them, and not what the law says. So the rule of law is based on a government having adequate enforcement mechanisms, and for the people not to be ignorant of the provisions of the law.
Well, that's Barrister Prince Uzeme telling us what Evidice said, essentially that everyone is subject to the law. The law is supreme. So even the judiciary, the executive, the legislature, they're subject to the law. We're still on the streets and we're going to be getting more responses from our Street Teacher segment. Stay tuned. Agnes Chukunonso, what do you understand by the rule of law?
I think the rule of law is the doctrine that states that nobody is above the law, that everybody is equal before the law. Even the executive, the judiciary, the legislature, that everybody is equal to the law. That therefore everybody should be treated equally.
This is still You.Gov, and in our Street Teacher segment we'll be talking with a lot of Nigerians who understand the concept of the rule of law. And I have here with me another intelligent respondent. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, what's the name?
Olomu-Agbodo is my own name.
Okay, what do you understand by rule of law?
By my own understanding, rule of law means a rule that is precipitated on law. That is, at least if we are talking about a rule of law, maybe where it operates, the rule that operates maybe in the community or within a group of people or in a country, how is it being operated? Is it on legal terms? Is it on illegal terms? Is it on their probation? Is it on their cultural or custom, or is it on their beliefs? But when we say rule of law, you see, law, this law that we are saying, it has to combine all this together. The arts, the philosophy, the culture, the beliefs of those people and their religion. That is what will be guiding them. And once this is guiding them and they compare themselves to it, being that is the reason why they are a member of that society, at least everything will go in order. That society can be referred to as a society that is operating on rule of law.
This is still Street Teacher, and I'm with Olamilekan, who will be telling us what he understands by the rule of law. Let's take a listen.
Okay. So, rule of law, to my own best of knowledge, I can say rule of law is the way by which our law is being taken out and the way we make use of them. Law is a kind of a principle or guide or a kind of a guideline that's been set for a people in a particular organization or the country, just to followed by it and to obey.
Wow, interesting. Indeed, it's not only lawyers that know what the rule of law is all about. We heard them, especially the first speaker, talking about everyone being subject to the law. And the second speaker was even more philosophical. Then we heard the third speaker. Well, that's all on our Street Teacher segment. Now we're going to take a look at some tidbits on this topic. Don't go away. Well, we're wrapping up this segment now, and it's still You.Gov. But before we go, we'd like to hear from our viewers. So we send out questions and trivias every week. Last week's question was, who is Nigeria's finance minister? And we got a response on our King's Chat page from Tomiwa Oshenaike, and he told us the finance minister for Nigeria is Kemi Adeosun. Thank you so much, Tomiwa Oshenaike, for sending your contributions and for actually getting the answer. Kemi Adeosun is Nigeria's finance minister. Next week's question is, who is the proponent of the doctrine of separation of powers? I repeat, who is the proponent of the doctrine of separation of powers? We would like to hear from you. So you can send your contributions, your questions, your answers to #You.Gov on our King's Chat Super User account. I remain yours sincerely, Olomu-Agbodo. And from me, it's bye for now, and God bless you.